Hey, what's up?
What's that?
What's that? Hi everybody, Rix here. Hey, what I want to talk about in this video is the basics about transferring images using my special transfer paper. I know that in a lot of channels they use regular printer paper and you glue it on and then you have to wet it, rub it, wet it, rub it, wet it, rub it, wet it, rub it. And I just said, forget it, I'm not doing that. And that's what set me on trying to figure out how to create a paper that would allow me to glue the image on when it dries, just moisten it and be able to peel the paper off really easy. And as you know, I succeeded in doing that and made it available to all of you who want it. But basically I created it for myself, but then, I'm already making it, so that's that. But however, being someone who uses it regularly every day, I'm very comfortable with the nuances. How much glue to add, whether to use gel, whether to use Mod Podge, all these things. And I still get a lot of questions as to, well, how do you do this? How come this happens, this and this? So what I want to do in this video is kind of just slowly go through the steps. I'm going to try my best to cover as many angles as possible. Unfortunately, it's a possibility I might leave something out. I hope not, but we'll see. So anyway, let's get right into it. Okay, so what I've done here is I've printed a couple images that we're going to use for testing purposes. But before we get into that, let's talk about the paper itself. Now, this paper that you see here is simply printer paper. It's not any magic paper. It doesn't have any particular special anything, so that when you stick this in your laser printer, you don't have to change any settings. You just print it like you print anything else. However, if you get my quick transfer paper, I have treated this paper so it acts differently after you print on it. The printing is going to look like you printed on regular paper. It's not going to look any different. This paper acts different when you glue it and then you moistened it. That's the difference. Everything else about this paper is identical to just regular old printer paper. Now, I did spend a little extra money on this paper for a reason. It has 25% cotton in the fibers. So that gives it a little bit more strength. And I did that for the purposes of when it's moistened. When you wet paper, it kind of starts to fall apart. The wood pulp just breaks apart real easy. It does have a little more strength to it. So what I tend to do is after I moistened it, then I dab the extra moisture off of it, gives it extra strength so you can peel it off, hopefully in one pull. Sometimes you might have to do 2, maybe 3, depending on how many times you tore it in the process. But anyway, not a big deal. It beats rubbing, wetting, rubbing, wetting. I ain't doing that all over again. Okay. So anyway, let's now think about the construction of this special paper now. Okay, because special now because I've changed how it functions. All right. This paper has a special coating on top. All right. So you have the paper. We'll call it the paper layer. Okay. Then it has a coating. We'll call it the coating layer. All right. Then when you print on it like this, Now you have the print layer. And in the case of a laser printer, we're talking about toner. So you can call it the print toner layer. We won't get into inkjet in this video, but I do have videos on how you can use an inkjet printer. There's just a couple of things you'd want to do to the paper first. But anyway, we're not going to go in that in this video. All right, so we technically have 3 layers. Let's go over it. The paper layer, the coating layer, the print layer. All right, now, when you print on this paper and put that print layer on there, that print is not on the paper layer. Where is it? It's on the coating layer. So when we glue it onto something, you're gluing not the paper layer, but you're gluing the print layer onto your tile, your wood surfaces, you know, whatever, glass, plastic, whatever you can glue paper to, you can glue the print layer onto. All right? This is important to keep in mind. So when it dries, when the glue dries, that print layer is stuck to whatever it is you glued it to. But because the print layer is on the coating layer and the coating layer is on the paper layer, we're not going to be able to pull it off, right? It's stuck on there. But when you add moisture, water on a sponge, something, onto the back of the paper, it soaks into the paper layer from the back side to the other side of the paper layer where it comes in contact to the coating layer. It then causes the coating layer to detach, to separate itself from the paper layer, thus allowing you to pull the paper off, leaving the print layer and the coating layer behind. Now note the coating layer is transparent, so when you transfer, you don't see the coating layer, you just see the image. Does that make sense? Now this is very important. When you glue your image onto the surface of something, whether it's tile, wood, plastic, glass, it doesn't matter. When you do that properly, and you properly let it dry, okay? There should be no way that you could pull that image off that surface. Okay? So, if you pull your paper, let's say you moisten it, and then you peel the paper off, and if any part of that image remains on the paper, guess what? That part of the image was not properly glued to the surface. There is no way this paper can just pull a glued image off the surface. I get people sometimes saying, hey, you know, my image is missing spots. There's little white spots or something on the image, and then they look on the paper and they can see those little spots of the image is still on the paper. In other words, they peel the paper off and it's not completely white, but it has parts of the image still stuck to the paper. And they go, oh man, the paper didn't work. No, the problem is those little pieces of images that's still on the paper were never glued to the surface. Because if it was glued to the surface, you cannot pull it off, period. You'd have to chisel it off, sand it off, scrape it off, but you're not going to just peel it off if it's glued. Now, what could cause that problem? Well, number one is you did not properly apply your glue. You missed spots. Those missed spots are not going to be gluing anything because there's no glue there. Or Perhaps you did glue the whole area, but maybe you're working on a big image. And as you're gluing over here, this over here is drying. Okay, so, you know, depending on how long it takes for you to add your Mod Podge or your gel medium or whatever, that stuff starts drying as soon as you're putting it on there, especially depending on the material. If you're going to glue on wood, for example, well, it's porous and it's sucking that moisture, that glue in, and it's going to cause the glue to dry quicker than if you were to glue it onto tile, which is not porous if the glaze is still there. If you remove the glaze, then it is porous, but that's another subject. But the point is that it's going to absorb the moisture of the glue and it's going to start causing it to start drying. And it's not just going to dry evenly across the whole thing, because you might have it a little bit thicker on this end, you may put a little thinner layer on this end, and the thinner is going to dry faster than the thicker end, right? So if you're not careful to make sure that the glue is still moist, not dry, and not tacky. If the glue is tacky, well, it's only 50-50 that it's actually going to be able to hold that image down, okay? You do not want the glue to be set up. The glue needs to still be wet. But wet is the trick here, or the issue. You see, remember, how does the paper detach from the coating layer? How does the paper layer detach from the coating layer? By moisture. And glue has moisture. You see where we can have a problem here? So what happens is that with images, let's take this image for example. Everywhere that there's toner, in other words, you have a color part of your image, you have a layer, a print layer of toner. But guess what color toner most laser printers do not have? They do not have white toner. So how do you end up printing the white areas of an image? You don't. You see, printers don't print the white areas. They just leave it empty and let the white of the paper itself become the color of the image. Do you see what we have here? Everywhere that the image is white, there is no toner. There's nothing there. That means in that spot, in those areas with white, you have direct access to the coating layer. There is no print layer on top of it. Your glue is immediately touching the coating layer, and if the glue is very wet, it's going to cause that coating to start wanting to release itself. And that's a problem. Because if it does, now your glue, it's not gluing the image in that area. It's gone straight through and it's now gluing the paper layer to the surface, and it's going to stick, and the paper is not going to peel off because the glue pre-activated the coating, and the coating now is no longer effective in those areas that you have the white. Does that make sense? So you may end up with paper stuck that you're going to have to moisten and rub off and not doing that again. So anyway, I just want you to think this through. How did I originally get around this problem? Well, I created videos early on where you see me using something called Liquitex or Blix gel medium. So like right here, okay, you can see, and I got plastic over it, but it's acrylic. Okay, it's matted gel medium. Matted gel is thick. It's a thick gel. And when we use it, we put a thin layer on the surface, all right? And before it dries or tacks up, we press the image on it face down, we roll it with a brayer, we want good contact, and then we want to let it dry. All right? We want to let it dry. Now, within about 45 seconds to 1 minute after you press it on, the image has already started to detach itself from the paper because there is still moisture in that gel. So, excuse me, so if you have seen my videos where I show you how to do an image transfer in 45 seconds to 1 minute, well, now you'll know why that happens. It's because the gel medium in 45 seconds to a medium has tacked up enough to hold the image and has supplied enough moisture to the coating layer to allow it to detach from the paper. So technically, you can just peel the paper off without adding any moisture if it's done around 45 seconds to 1 minute, because it's still, there's enough moisture there. But however, once it completely dries, then you're going to need to like moisten it with a sponge because it won't come off. Now I can demonstrate this for you as I've done before. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to move everything. Now I got this camera up here that we're going to use. Okay, so we're going to transfer onto this nice, smooth, sanded smooth, some kind of balsa woody thing that you can buy for hobbies at a hobby store. Okay, we're going to use that. Now, because this thing will do its thing in about 45 seconds to 1 minute, I need to be precise. So I'm going to bring my timer out here. Okay, let's see, stopwatch. There we go. Okay, so I got this stopwatch that I'm going to use here. And now let's do this. All right. I'm going to sacrifice here for right now one of these images. Let's go ahead and cut it because we're going to use the other image for a different transfer in a minute or so. But I just want to show you something. Now, I don't recommend the 45 second to 1 minute transfer anymore because I find that you can get much better results if you just let it completely dry. But I want to show you how this works. Now, this image is, I believe, bigger than this wood piece, so it's not going to have the complete, it's not going to be completely in there. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a spongy thing here and I'm going to put on a nice layer, okay? And I will usually do this with my finger because it allows me to feel if there are any dry spots or any of those hard pieces that come off the lid. Don't want those. They'll keep the paper off the surface here, and I don't want that. Now, why do I go with a thin layer rather than just go on thick and heavy, which will guarantee that it won't prematurely dry? The reason is because it will cause the paper to wrinkle. And if you wrinkle the paper while it's drying, well, you can only imagine that you're going to have lines in your image, and it's just not going to look good. Bottom line is you don't want your paper to wrinkle. Now those hard bits, like I just got a hard bit in here and it's causing these streaks, and I'm going to bring this up here so you can see it. You see that? You see those real deep grooves right there? See, like right, it's hard for me to align my hand here, but right, you can see there are just those lines that go up, those big thick lines. That's because as I'm dragging this brush across the wood here, there's a hard piece that has gotten off on the brush from the container and it's scraping the glue off. This is why you have to be very careful that you have 100% coverage if you want 100% of a transfer. All right, so I think I've done a decent enough job. I'm not going to go for perfection, but I want you to see how this is done. Now in this case, we got to hurry. We want to take advantage of the moisture of, okay, I'm going to start my timer here right now, and I'm going to roll this. Okay. Wonder why that's making all kinds of noise over there, driving me crazy. Now this will not dry in 1 minute, which is what we want to make sure it does not do. All right. So notice we're 40 seconds. All right. So we'll wait to the 1 minute mark, and then we're going to peel this off. 59, 60. Okay. So now you come in here and you go like this and you peel it off. And look at this. The image is 100% transferred. Clean off the glue. Look at that. Now, isn't that awesome? That's actually pretty good. Now, of course, I did not get the image all the way across it. So anyway, but you can see how great that came out. That's perfect. That is perfect. So you want to transfer images onto wood and you want to do it in 1 minute? Gel medium, not Mod Podge because that's too wet. Gel medium. Nice clean board, make sure it's well pressed, and peel it in 1 minute. All right, so you can see that the coating is immediately affected by the moisture of the glue. Well, the problem is that once it dries, all right, now you have to be careful because once it dries, if you're using a really wet glue, it's going to glue the paper that's underneath the coating layer onto the wood surface, and when you peel it off, it will tear off on those areas and you'll have paper left behind. All right, so please keep that in mind. So you may be wondering, well, I want to use a different kind of glue. I don't want to use gel medium, and quite frankly, I don't use gel medium that much anymore. It used to be my go-to, but there's just a lot of things that I want to do that gel medium did not work for very good. And one thing is if you were to spray crystal clear, the acrylic clear spray, the protective spray, well, unfortunately, acrylic gel medium reacts with acrylic clear coating spray. That's the thing. And what will happen is the image will start to smear and the actual clear coat will come off. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the clear coat when you're using the gel medium. We use the clear coat. Let me go give me some clear coat. So here it is. This is the stuff I use. Get it in focus there. There you go. And notice it says acrylic coating right there. Acrylic coating. Okay. This, there it is. Acrylic medium. See that? They react with each other. They don't play nice. So don't use them together, at least not for this application. So then, hey guys, move over, there you go. So what do we use this for? Well, let me explain. Remember that I told you that we have the paper layer, then the coating layer, then you will print on the coating layer with your laser printer, right? By using this crystal clear, for example, there may be other things you could use. You have to experiment on your own on that. But if you use the crystal clear, for example, to protect the image, you will then have a protective layer. That protective layer is attached to the printing layer. Okay, so you have your You have your paper layer, your coating layer, your print layer, and then on top of it, we will put a clear coat layer right on top of that. Now what happens? Okay, now when you apply your glue to your wood, all right, that glue, no matter how wet it is going to be in contact with the coating layer. It will not be touching the print layer. It will not be touching the coating layer. And most importantly, the glue will not touch the paper layer. You have completely protected all the layers underneath the crystal clear. You see how that would work? Well, what does it mean? It means we can use wetter glues. We can use a glue. We can use as much glue, and what we're not going to do is we're not going to smear the image. We're not going to wrinkle the paper. We're just basically going to be wasting a lot of glue for nothing. But you'll be able to be free to add a little more glue, which will be a little wetter, and you can use Mod Podge right here. Here's one. I got several kinds. Yep. But here's one, Mod Podge. So you would use your Mod Podge, for example, and it's a wet, very wet glue. Okay, there's one I use. This is very wet, very liquidy. That's going to be applied now onto the clear coat layer. That's what's going to end up being glued onto the surface of the wood or whatever. The clear coat is attached to the image. All right, guys, sorry, it seems my camera shut off and I don't know where it did that, so let's go over it again. So, when you spray the clear coat on your printed image, all right, and I'll explain the proper way of doing that in a second. You have the clear coat layer, then you have the print layer, then you have the coating layer and the paper layer, right? Okay, that clear coat layer is going to prevent any moisture from reaching the coating, and that's what we want to do. But I want you to keep something in mind. How do we release the paper when it's already dried, when the glue is dried? We moisten the back of the paper. That means that the moisture gets in through the paper to the coating layer and detaches the image from the paper, leaving the image behind. And it's going to be stuck to the surface because you glued the image and the coating to the surface. But if you get anything on the back of this paper when you're doing all this gluing or spraying with the clear coat, if you get it on the back of the paper, how is that moisture going to get into the paper to release the coating? It's not going to be able to do it, right? Parts of the image is not going to peel away from the paper. It's going to just tear and it's going to leave paper behind. Why? Because maybe you've got some glue on your fingers and then you touch the back of the paper. Whatever you do, do not allow anything to get on the back of the paper. All right? Very important. Everything must be on this side of the paper. The back side must be completely unadulterated. Make sure you do not have any glue. Make sure you don't touch it with water. Make sure you don't touch it with any liquids. Nothing. Do not let the spray hit the back of the paper because it will prevent moisture from going through the paper. All right? Very important. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to transfer this image using Mod Podge, which is a very wet glue. Now, we could just do it directly, but you risk the paper also attaching to the surface, and when dry, we may not be able to peel that paper off because that moisture can get through, especially the white areas. Remember the white areas? It can get through the image here to the coating, pre-activate the coating, and make it as if the coating wasn't even there and end up gluing the paper onto the surface. You want to avoid that. So what we're going to do is we're going to protect this image with this crystal clear. All right. Now, the way we do this is very important. Please pay attention to this part. When you spray this image, does the spray, does it come out wet or does it come out dry? If you said wet, you're right. The spray is going to come out wet. And what did I just say about wet? If you put anything wet on this thing here, you're going to pre-activate the coating. And that includes this spray, and it's going to cause this paper not to peel off whatever your surface is. So how then do you apply this so-called spray coating, this wet coating, onto the paper? You do it by spraying from a distance. And you spray it kind of like above, and you let it just drop down on the image. And you do that a few times. And then after a few times, as it lands as dry as possible, there will be a layer of protection that is now on that image. You can then come a little closer, but don't soak it, but you can come a little closer to finish it off. But make sure that you know that you've already pretty much protected it from a distance before you know, which I wouldn't do that anyway. That's not a good idea. So that's what I'm going to do right now, is I'm going to spray coat this paper. So here I'm going to bring this image and put it on this cardboard thing here, just so that I don't get sprayed all over the place. Now I'm behind the camera. Hi. Okay. And this is a good 3 feet away from the camera right now. And I'm here with my spray, and I'm going to do this from a distance, all right? So you may or may not see the spray. I can't tell without going behind the camera, but at the same time, I want to make sure I'm not spraying everything in the room except the image. I'm just going to spray in the air in the direction of the image, but I want it to fall on it and dry as it's falling on it. See, I'm just misting. Let me see if I can get over here so you can see. And I'm just doing this, okay? I do not want it to land on the paper. I don't want any droplets to fall on the paper. I just want a mist. I just want a mist. And I would do this outside in the garage if I were you, or somewhere where you don't have to have your spouse come home and yell at you because you made the whole house smell like chemicals. That never happens to me. No. She's not here right now. You see, I am spraying way up here. And then I want it to just fall down and land on the paper. And it's going to land on the paper relatively dry. It certainly isn't going to be wet enough to activate the coating layer. And I'll do this a few times between dries. Okay, just like that. And it doesn't take long to dry because it's not really hitting it wet. It's kind of drying as it floats through the air and drops down. And then I'm going to give it one last blast for good measure from way up here. Okay, and that's good enough. If I missed anything, well, we'll find out about it soon. Okay, I'm back. And I can feel that clear coat on the paper. And hopefully I managed to protect it. Now I don't know if you can see any kind of shine or anything. And hopefully I did a good job. I may have not done a good job, but hopefully I did do a good job. Hopefully, yeah. All right, well, let's get another wood piece. Donuts for donuts, right? Here we go, another one of those. But this time, of course, we're going to do it with the wet glue, the Mod Podge. Why do I even bother working out if I can't even open up the lid, right? Oh! Oh! Ah, there we go. See my mother do that, you know, bang lids on the, when I was a kid, you know, seems to work. All right, are we in the picture here? No, we're not, but we are now. No, you know what, I'll do it this way. There we go. Okay, so I can apply the glue, the Mod Podge. I can put it on the image itself if I'm confident I completely protected it. If I didn't completely protect it, well, I'm going to end up wiping the coating away. Now, if I want to make sure that I don't do that, just concentrate on putting your wet glue just on the surface itself. That way you're not actually trying to wipe anything away on the image. So you can be generous because remember, we protected the image, right? Okay, so let's get this on here. Yeah, so wet, very wet glue. Look how wet this stuff is. And you remember what it looked like with the gel medium? The gel medium was not this wet. This stuff is wet. And yes, you can use regular Elmer's wood glue, stuff like that. You know, those glues are all water soluble. In other words, they're washable glues. So, you know, you are going to be using moisture, and that makes them a little bit riskier of being washed off with water, right? You know, you can experiment. Just remember that you don't want to waste all your paper with your well, you know, it's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you want to, you can. But here, I'll get some glue on there, squeeze it out of my brush, and then I'm going to use my finger to make sure that I have got it all the way to the edge. I can feel these little bits. I want to get those bits off because they always cause problems. But make sure you don't have any dry wood. See, there's more bits. Lots of bits. I hate bits. Kibbles and bits. Hate it all. Yeah. I know, hate's a strong word, but. Alright, so that feels like I have gotten that glue on there pretty good. Can I see all those little tiny bits thingies on there? I hate that. See, that can cause little problems, but hey, you know what? We'll do it. And I'm just going to lay this straight on the image and then flip it over. I notice the image is not as tall as my wood, so I may end up with a white border, but we'll see. And then flip it over this way because we need to use the brayer. All right. From the center, I usually just go outwards like so. Now normally I will put a plastic protection on top of here before I roll it, so I do not get any glue on my brayer, and then with the brayer you end up rolling all that glue on the back of the paper. See, that's what I just finished saying you do not want to do, right? But in this case, the paper is big enough that it's protecting my brayer. There's nothing getting on my brayer itself, so I'm fine. And if there is any ooze out, I'll show you in a second where it ended up. There's ooze out right there. See that right there? But no biggie because it's on that side of the paper. And make sure you have good contact. All right? If you have a nice flat wooden surface like this, no problem. All right, there we go. So you should have it nicely pressed. And I think that should show up on the camera pretty nicely. Whoops, I just lifted it. You don't want to lift it. Okay. And you can see that I have pressed it really well. There is a little bit of a, right, that line you see right there, I gotta press that out. Okay, just make sure that that's actually not an issue. Doesn't look like it is. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need this to completely dry. When you're doing this on wood like I am right now, there's no water in here. Wow. When you do this on wood, because it's so porous, it will dry quickly. You can then use like a heat gun or a hair dryer to speed it up, and that's what we're going to do here. And I'm going to take about, I'd say 4 minutes. I'm going to time this so that I don't spend any extra time unnecessarily. Go down here. Where's my timer? Okay, we're going to go with 4 minutes. And after 4 minutes, I will come back. I think that's it. Okay, so that's 4 minutes. Now what I'm going to do is get me some water and we're going to peel this off. So give me a few seconds to do that. I got me some water here. And I'm going to moisten the back of this to release it. Now remember what is glued. The clear coat should be glued to the surface of this wood. And the clear coat is attached to the image because that's what we sprayed it on, right? Now I'm adding this water to the back of this paper, and by doing it, it's soaking the paper, reaching the other side of the paper, and interacting with that coating, causing the coating to come apart from the paper, thus releasing the print and clear coat that's glued to the surface. Now to make this easy, after moistening it like I just did, I'm going to just take off the excess because the coating should already have received its share of moisture there. And we should be able to just peel this off, leaving behind the image. Okay. And as you can see, we had another successful transfer. Here's, to make sure you can see, here's the other one. So these are the two different ones that was in that one sheet. So you know I'm not trying to do a fancy on you there, okay? And here, as you can see, is a well here, I'll do it that way. It's a perfect transfer. Let's see, there you go, look at that. Now remember I said the image wasn't big enough, so you can see some of the wood showing on the top. It didn't cover the whole thing. But look at how perfect that is. See that? And that's using Mod Podge. And that took 4 minutes. So I showed you gel medium with 1 minute, which I normally would just, I don't do the 1 minute normally. I just dry it like this. I'll do 4 minutes with that as well. Okay, and remember you can do that when you are transferring to a porous. For those who may not know what porous means, maybe like our really young ones, because I know a lot of young people watch this channel. Porous means that water, that it has like microscopic holes, water and moisture can soak into the material, so it can soak into the wood. It's porous. If you pour water on the wood, you can see that it sucks into the wood. You'll know. If you were to pour water on top of a glazed tile, which is not porous, you'll notice the water will just bubble, like you'll just puddle on the top because it can't soak in past the glaze on the top. It's not porous. So if you do this transfers onto a porous surface, it will glue fast. It will dry fast, especially if you use like a hair dryer or a heat gun. All right, so if you want to do fast transfers, then by all means you can do that. Otherwise, you can just let it dry overnight, let it dry for a few hours whatever rocks your thunderbolt. Okay? I don't know what that means. I just thought I'd say it. Thunderbolt. Meaningless. I'm too goofy. So hey, there's that. Where's that other one? Here it is. So here you go. Put it up here for the camera here. And of course, I'm not leaving you guys behind. There you go. Look at that. See? 2 beautiful, colorful images done. Really quick, really clean, peels right off. No rubbing and scrubbing and brushing and any of that stuff. If you don't remember exactly what you need to do to use wetter glues like Mod Podge as opposed to using thicker gels like Gel Medium, then scroll back and re-watch this video 200, 300, 400 times. And then that way, you know, you will then understand exactly the mechanics on how to do these really good image transfers. And once you understand these basics, you can use this paper, my special paper, and you can make really cool t-shirts like this one right here. You can, you know, make really cool tiles like this one I did, the Starship Enterprise. I'm not done with it right now because on another video, I want to buffer. I'm going to buff it. I just got my new Dremel set with the buffing pads, so you'll see that later. You can do, check this out. This is really cool. I made this little resin Mustang thing. It's kind of like transparent. If you were to put it on glass, you could see right through it. And this was really easy to do too. You can just do all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, wooden plaques and wooden, what do you call that? I don't know. See, like right here, you can do stuff like this, wooden coasters and ceramic tile coasters, and I don't know. I do a lot of different stuff, right? Okay, so let's wrap up. People say I talk too much. Yeah, I do. But then people keep asking questions. So maybe I'm not being thorough enough, so I'm going to try to be thorough. If I've already explained enough for you, just fast forward to the beginning, watch it again. No, I'm just kidding. That's it, folks. That's all that's to it. It's really, really not rocket science. It's paper science. It's transfer science. It's alien science. They gave me the secret on how to do this, but shh, don't tell the government. I don't want those men in black to be knocking on my door. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. I noticed that I have a lot of viewers, but a higher percentage of my viewers have not subscribed. So please do so. It really would help. And give me a like too, because YouTube, they're finicky, you know, about recommending my videos. But unless you hit that like, maybe leave a comment or two, they just won't recommend my videos. And I thank you so much for watching, because, you know, that means a lot to me. It really does. And I do hope that you got something out of this video, and I hope that it makes your image transfer crafts and just speechless. You know, just much more fascinating and productive. I really do. So anyway, reach out to me if you have questions and so forth. And I will see you in the next video.